Guys, my name is Paul Gibbs. I am the owner of Xtreme Tank Technologies. I'm the guy behind all this madness. I've spent 30 years developing this tool. This is something that hasn't come out in the last year or two. 1990 was my original patent on this tool. The first patent on it was a skimmer. It's a floating skimmer. I float wherever the level is at. That's where I do all my business at. And because of that, I've changed the tank hydrocarbon storage industry. When it comes to carbon capture on tanks, I go to tank batteries where they have spent millions on the tank batteries, and there's lots of liquid coming in, and they have problems. The tanks will just start randomly leaking with a compressor on, and it's a big enough compressor. It's been pumping it down all this time. This solves a problem. We'll talk about why there are problems in tanks like that. I enhance carbon capture. Everything that flashes, I capture. There is nothing to improve after this. You know, like your clothes soap, we're always saying new and improved. There is no improvement because it's a total carbon capture. If it flashes, it's out of that tank. Because of this, I'm able to solve reed vapor pressure issues. A lot of these shell plays, pretty much every one I know of, they will have reed vapor pressure, especially in cold weather, because gas breaking out of liquids is what we call the world of distillation. And in the world of distillation, there's two factors, there's two knobs you turn, and only two knobs, and that's pressure and temperature. I spent 25 years at the Xtreme refinery. I was the guy who ran atmospheric distillation and vacuum distillation and reformation and naphtha hydrotreatment, propane deasphalt. I cooked crude oil at 685 degrees. I cooked gasoline at 965 degrees. So understanding what flashing is and removing and changing these hydrocarbon molecules is kind of my wheelhouse. This tool is a multifunctional tool. It does numerous tasks inside of a tank. It is not a one job tool. Another thing we can do with this tool is we can detect and extinguish tank fires, and we can do it in seconds of time. When you have a tank battery fire, you have these tanks that are 5 or 6 foot apart, and you have 10 of them lined up. It is so important to get it done quickly because the radiant heat is going to catch the next tank, and then the domino effect. Next thing you know, you've lost every tank out there. In the world of tank fire science, they deal with one tank. In the real world of oil field, we deal with, in oil production, we deal with numerous tanks. We call them tank batteries. I can change the tank's atmosphere from flammable to inert. I can shoot up the bottle of nitrogen and literally make that tank where you can't catch it on fire. I release the nitrogen in the correct spot, and that's at the flash zone where the oil level is. It changes that whole tank's atmosphere out. This next bullet says removing H2S to increase the life of the tank drastically on corrosion. We're referring to floating roof tanks. I want you to understand this is the only tool in the world that will capture on a floating roof tank. It is changing companies' business plans. They're permitted for X amount in the state of Texas, TCEQ. Anywhere there's oil, they call it a non-attainment area, which means they charge you more. That's all it boils down to. They're charging up to $350,000 per metric ton of emissions on these large tanks. There are large companies out there paying tens, hundreds of millions of dollars just to permit their tanks every year. It's based off emissions. If this tool goes in, that goes away. Now then, because that goes away, if you have a tank that's in sour service, sour crude oil, that's an acidic atmosphere, that roof eats up about every 3 years. We can go in there, capture this gas, lower the acidic atmosphere, make that roof last 10 years. It's about $4 million to shut a big tank down, clean it out, or reskin that roof. Every 3 years, they're looking at doing that, or they have pinholes all on the roof and they're leaking to the atmosphere if they don't. Just the downtime, because there's sure not too many tanks anywhere out there. Just the downtime of that tank is a huge deal. I saved them a year of downtime. It's 3 times it went down for 4 months at a time. I saved them $3 to $4 million 3 times by adding this tool. I changed their permits. In other words, there's a large midstream company here in Midland, Texas. They're not allowed any more permits. They won't give them any for tanks. So they go and they find a third party, and that third party builds the tank and they lease it from them. Well, it's a lot more expensive that way because that third party is going to make money. If this tool goes in, it changes their business plan. They are allowed to build more tanks now because their permit allows them so much emission and they're not emitting anymore. All right, this tool also allows you to handle and treat bad oil. I can honestly say, when it comes to tank storage, when you do capital work, you actually think about how much volume you have and how many tanks you need. And now that bad oil has always been part of the factor in that. Nowadays, they've added RVP to it as well, because these shale play wells are not, if it's over 9 pounds, they won't buy it. This goes away. I can honestly say you no longer tie up tanks with bad oil. I tell people there's really no such thing as bad oil once this tool is put in. I'll show you why as we go through this. On capital work, you can now go with about 70% of the tankage because you take bad oil and RVP out of the math. It allows you to do that. So these companies are wanting to cut back on spending. That's 30% less tanks, valves, tank gauges, electricity, permitting, you name it. It adds up. Also, I've never met a what do you call the tires that flashes the gas off? I'm going blank. Marvin, you went blank. You're silent on me. I can't hear you. Vapor tower. That's what I'm trying to say is vapor tower. I never met a vapor tower I liked. A, you have to size them correctly. Your wells fall off. They're not sized right. B, you're stacking oil. If you want to have the best carbon capture there is, you need surface space. An idea is take a 2-gallon red can of gasoline that you use for your lawnmower, fill it up, let's take it to your garage, close your garage door, let's unscrew the cap on it, set the can down on your garage floors, walk in your house, and go to your kitchen and eat a ham sandwich, walk back to your garage and open the garage door. It's going to be like, man, it smells like gasoline in here big time, because vapors are coming out of that gas can. Take that same 2-gallon gas can, go in your garage and pour it out on your floor, all the way across your floor. Now let's walk into your kitchen. Before we get to your refrigerator, your house is going to fill up with vapors because you created a larger vapor. You created a larger vapor space, a larger surface area for vapors to break out. A vapor tower, 30, 40 foot tall, it's a ½ pound per foot. So y'all do the math. That's how much pressure you're holding on that oil. It doesn't break gas out. Your tanks are where you can handle and stabilize your liquids. And that's what this is about, is stabilizing the atmosphere, which is stabilizing the liquids. One is the same as the other. I take liquids, I make them into a vapor. I can take those vapors and put them right back to a liquid. This tool allows you to keep your hot oiling clean. People don't realize it, but we're pumping trash down our wells. It happens every day, especially in the heavy oil program, where you do have more iron sulfides and more paraffins and things. Matter of fact, in some of these South Texas, I don't know if it's in East Texas, but I know South Texas, their paraffin is outrageous on these shale wells. They're big time. I see you smiling, Marvin. Is that true?
That's true.
Yeah, paraffin is a big problem. This tool can be used in saltwater disposal tanks, water flood. It's the best skimmer in the world. They ain't nothing. I've got letters from SWD people who send me letters saying and telling me how they use it and how good it works. They're taking oil off their water tanks and putting it into a designated oil tank, and they've never treated it with chemical that's been pipeline quality. This tool grounds the load. There is no static build in tanks, and water tanks are 5.5 times more of a static charge builder than what crude oil is. That's why you see so many lightning strikes in water tanks. If you have the oil removed from your water tanks, it's hard to burn water. You could actually put a nitrogen skid out there and purge your tanks 24/7, and lightning could hit all day long. If your oil's gone and your atmosphere is inert, guess what? It is hard to burn metal and oil. Sorry, metal and water. Stabilize the tank bottoms. What that means is, I had a customer. It was a heavy secondary recovery heavy field. They went in twice to this tank and engineered to keep the bottom stirred up where they wouldn't build up. And every winter they were camped out on bad oil caused tank bottoms. When this tool goes in, you can use it for your suction. If you have a 24-foot tall tank or a 20-foot tall tank, whatever it is, you can pump from 20 foot up there. You stay away from your tank bottoms. That's how I handle bad oil. Okay, let's talk about vapor recovery. You're doing vapor recovery today on your tanks or with a vapor tower. Put this tool in, I will gain you 18%. You are missing gases today. Everyone is missing gases today. Vapor recovery was invented in 1946, somewhere in that time frame. And it was invented, it was a necessity. And it wasn't because of state or federal regulations. There weren't any. It was because H2S was killing people, goats, horses, sheep, cows, kids, anything that came, birds. You know, how many of y'all gone up to a site and seen dead birds laying around? H2S kills things. So they had to do something. So they figured out a way to capture this gas, and they came up with this low suction compressor. Ever since then, we have been missing what flashes in that tank. That's how I gain that 18%. The 18% I gain will be a heavier molecule, a molecule that never makes it to the roof of that tank. Because I remove it, I stabilize it, that tank. I stabilize the liquids and I stabilize the atmosphere. I'll give you an example here. These 5 to the left average 1,326 BTUs, and these other 2 columns average 1,186 BTUs. Y'all can see my mouse here. This 1,186 BTUs. This is the same tank battery, same oil, same ambient temperature, same days. If you'll look, we're coming off the roof and we're going to a compressor. Pressure transmitter's working at the compressor. It comes on at, I don't remember, 8 ounces and off at 2 ounces, something like that. This was our average BTU. This next tank, same oil, same pressure transmitter, same compressor, same temperatures. I average 1,326. I'm grabbing molecules that you're missing today. These molecules are your C7s and 6s and 5s. Traditionally, yeah, that jump, let me get over that. Traditionally, you're coming off the roof of the tank. Let's say you're a pressure transmitter. For sake of this argument, let's say you're a pressure transmitter. Y'all can hear my dogs. I haven't had an alligator walk in my house in all the years I've had my dogs. Not one alligator showed up, so they're doing their job. Anyway, this compressor has a pressure transmitter right here, and let's say it right here. Let's say at 8 ounces it's on, at 2 ounces is off. So I build this trend. 8 ounces it's on, pumps it down to 2, it shuts off, goes back to 8, 2, 8, 2. I have this little ocean wave of trend I built. What I've done is I've changed how we collect flash gases. We collect them in the flash zone. In the world of distillation, and this is natural distillation happening here. This is the first time oil is seen atmospheric. I am capturing in the most volatile active area there is. Pressure transmitter is in the same spot at this compressor. Same oil, same everything. My trend looks like you hooked me or James up to an EKG machine on an exercise bicycle. It's got these spikes in it constantly. It's constantly showing the release and the explosion of gases coming out of that oil. The compressor runs longer. Why? I'm grabbing gases you never got. The compressor grabs everything. I'm reading the action taking place, not the effect of. Right now, if I had to come out of this, I would have to come out of this tank. Let me find my mouse here. Go down this pipe, get to this compressor. So you have all this buffered area you have to build up pressure on. Where I'm at, I'm reading it as it happens. The room you're in right now, where your feet are, is your floor. Let's call that the oil level in this tank. In other words, your office is a tank you're in. So this floor that you're looking at, that's where the oil is. And gases will flash and they'll rise up. C7s will rise up 4 or 5 foot. They'll condense. They'll go back to a liquid. C6s will get almost to the roof of the tank or to your ceiling in your office. They'll condense and they go back to a liquid. C5s will hit your ceiling, crawl over to find this 4-inch opening come out of this tank here. They'll form a droplet, go back down to a liquid. It's still there. They're going to flash again. More oil comes in. Same thing happens. I've got customers that their compressor comes on, it shuts off, comes on, shuts off, comes on, wham, they start leaking. Thief hatches leak, and Nardo valves leak. It's because they have an unstable tank. All those C7s from previous oil that came in is still there, 6s and 5s. You brought in new 7s, 6s, and 5s. It went up to 8 ounces. The pressure came on, those extras flashed, it went to 14 ounces. Thief hatches open. You did not stabilize your atmosphere. This takes suction where your feet are on the floor. There's nothing that's going to condense. All right, by saying that, I stabilize the liquids in that tank and I stabilize the atmosphere. I don't have these heavy gas molecules going back to a liquid form to flash again. They left that tank. So I solve a lot of problems out there. It is the best carbon capture there is. You can do away with your vapor tower. You can do away with 30% of your tanks. Turn the volume. This gives you an idea. Right now, you have to depend on stuff to get out of your tank the traditional way. Any column, you have a gas. Your heavier gases are at the bottom. Your lighter gases will make their way to the top. The only way the heavy gases will make it there is to build up enough that they burp out or they piggyback their way out. But still, you have a concentration of heavy gases. I change all that. If it flashes, I take it out. It is a complete carbon capture. Stop it right there. What you're looking at here is the distillation column that every refinery has. This is where you cook oil. Grandpappy Steel 101 right here. Distillation 101. I take crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, to 685 degrees Fahrenheit, and I stick it in right there. It flashes. It goes up that tire. 70% of it flashes at 685 degrees. That's not me making up numbers. That's real world numbers there, by the way. 37% at 685 degrees will go out the top of that tower. This tank here is 120, 130, 100 degrees. Do you think you're getting 100% out that top? No. Look at what condenses at 685 degrees. Jet condenses, kerosene condenses, diesel condenses, gas oil. These are all different seeds that condense. Same thing happens. The laws of physics didn't change. You're not capturing everything in your tank unless you capture in the flash zone. That is the only way to capture everything. This same tool that does your vapor recovery is a perfect tool. It's a type 1 fire suppression tool. It puts the foam in with no splash. It does not travel through 22,000 degrees Fahrenheit and evaporate. The wind does not carry it off. If the roof is not blown off, I still put tank fires out. I'll tell people we don't fight tank fires, we extinguish them. This is what the tool looks like. These 4 big pipes are your floats. That is what keeps this thing positioned at your top. I don't care if you're at 2 foot or 30 foot. This is riding at the top of your liquid. This big pipe here with a swedge on it, and yes, these sizes can change. I just had to show something, and I made these 2 different sizes. That way you can tell the difference. This is a 4-inch to a 6-inch. So I have a 6-inch intake of gas. When this is sitting in oil, it's about 5 inches above the oil. Gas comes in here, goes out a hose, and goes out the tank. The oil level is right here. This is sitting in the liquid. This is my skimmer line. This is my liquid line. This skimmer line, we always call them a skimmer line, but they can do so much. This is a 2-inch size. I'll have a 2-inch hose running along with that 4-inch, and it goes right outside, goes outside your manway door, just like the 4-inch does. This is liquid. This is gas. This is also your lifeline if there's a fire. It's raining outside again. I can't believe it. West Texas is raining, and it's not raining in East Texas. All right. We're going to talk about this skimmer here. Of course, y'all know what a skimmer does. It takes liquids out of a tank. Let me tell you what this tool can do. Willingston, North Dakota, it's -4 degrees this morning. They have high RVPs there. Matter of fact, when they came out with this institutional nationwide 9-pound mark, they stood behind it, and North Dakota couldn't reach it. Neither could Utah and Montana and all that. I mean, 11.5 pounds is about as good as they could get, because they started out at 14. They had all kinds of rental equipment, inline heaters and all that. They couldn't cook it out because this oil came into this tank and it released right down here, and that oil was 40 degrees. When 140 degree oil hits 40 degree oil, it condenses, it doesn't flash. So what we can do is we can block this valve, this line in, and not use this traditional fill line here. Let's pipe it up and let's come in from this yellow line here, and let's release our oil through the skimmer. It's now our tank fill line. I'm going to release it at the surface. I'm going to let 140 degree oil do what 140 degree oil does, and that's cook. It's going to release that gas. So I can tell you right now, distillation is about pressure and temperature. These tanks don't ever get over a pound, so it's not about pressure when it comes to tanks. It's about temperature. So everyone's cranking their heater treaters up and burning up fire tubes and having the damnest fires you ever seen. It's all about where you put the oil in the tank. I can take crude oil and make the vapor recovery compressor in Willingston, North Dakota run about as much in January as it does July. Right now, their compressors, I mean, in the wintertime there, in January, their compressors don't come on hardly, if any at all, because it's so stinking cold up there. In July, they're running all the time. Same way in Colorado. This changes that. This solves and stabilizes, solves RVP, stabilizes your liquid, stabilizes your atmosphere, does away with your problems. Here's what else I can do. Picture this tank being completely full. It's showing 2/3 full right now. Let's say it's completely full. I'm on bad oil. It's 98% oil, 2% water. Your sales line is 10 inches in the bottom of your tank. That tank is no good to me. I can tell you in the Permian Basin, there is so much of this going on. Every oil company, when they get on bad oil, they give that oil away. They will give a 750 barrel or 1,000 barrel tank of oil away for free. versus fighting that thing, because they do not want to have to call the office in Dallas or Houston or wherever it's at and say, yeah, we had to shut those 11 wells in because our tanks were full. They get rid of the problem. They get rid of that oil. It's happening so much that a lot of the trucking managers around here have gone and bought 5 or 6 old junky tanks and an acre of land. They get paid to truck that oil out, and they're the one that takes that oil, puts it in them junky tanks, lets it sit for a week, draw the water off, and they got free oil. They're making a lot of money with that. If this tank is completely full and I'm on bad oil, I can't sell it because my sales line is down here 10 inches from the bottom of the tank. Why don't you sell from right there, 24 foot up there? I can suck that tank at 24 foot now and say let's say the bad oil starts at 4 foot. I have removed 20 foot of good oil out of a bad oil tank at market price at $40 a barrel. I didn't give it away. Now then, from outside the tank, oh, by the way, I got 20 foot of room. I don't have to shut in no wells. From outside the tank, I'm going to take straight chemical. I don't have to go up the thief hatch, port the thief hatch, open the gas valve, and roll the tank. I shoot chemical in there, release the chemical at the surface, let the chemical fall through it. It absorbs into the water, makes the water weigh more, knocks it out. Y'all know how these soaps work on the chemical world of treating bad oil. Knocks it out. It's kind of like shocking your pool. You could shock this tank, and in 2 hours the water's knocked out of it, and never walk up the ladder of the tank. Never go up it. This tool, if you'll notice, little wire I got hooked to the manway door. This tool is all stainless steel. I built them out of 2 different ways. I built them out of carbon steel. I built them out of stainless steel. The hoses will be stainless, or they will be a composite hose that has a stainless spring on the outside and the inside. It carries electrical current, in other words. I ground that load in that tank. There is no static build in that tank. Oh, let me get back to talking about hot oiling. Truck pulls up, goes to your sales line, a hot oil truck. He takes 90 barrels on. He's sitting there sucking, all of a sudden you see his truck shake. You think, I wonder if he just got through putting some tank bottles in that truck. He goes to well number 1, if you just had this directional well you drilled, and you spent $16 million drilling it and fracking it and building tank battery and all that. He pumps the oil down the casing and he melts the paraffin and scale on the casing, the tubing, the flow line. It comes right back to this tank and it dumps in here, and you got all these floating particles floating around it. All the trash that he just cleaned, it did its job. It cleaned the trash out. They're floating around in here. He comes back to do well number 2. He grabs that same line. He's grabbing particles. He's grabbing trash from well number 1. After he treats well number 2, you have more particles floating around in here. It's more concentration. Y'all get my drift here. You're spending all this money on wells and we're pumping trash down them. Or what you could do is you plumb this in where it comes around here, and when he takes suction, he's taking suction from up here. You got 12 foot of tank. You're the cleanest oil you've got. Now that we mentioned that, what's it worth to you to do your shakeouts every time you sell a tank from the top versus the bottom? What's 0.1% more worth to you? Now then, the black and the green, just a good old skimmer here. I remove the black, I leave the green. Water's the green, oil's the black. There's not a tank battery out there that doesn't have water tanks. There's not a water tank out there that doesn't have oil on it. You hire trucks and they come by and they get 2 guys. One guy goes up the ladder, strings out this big old heavy hose, sticks it in the manway, sticks it down there. Another guy's on the truck valve, he opens it up and closes it. Well, it's really not the most accurate way of doing things. And it's expensive, about $2 grand a day for that. Or you put this tool in and you never hire a truck again. You never have a man on top of that tank open the thief hatch, putting you out of compliance, by the way, because you're not supposed to have the thief hatches open. And there's no right way to ground what he's doing. If someone ever dies doing that, you won't have enough insurance. There also, if it's H2S, there's another problem too. This is all done internally inside the tank with never going up the ladder, never opening the thief hatch. I can also go in and, well, let me just show you, here's some skimmers I built. This is out in New Mexico on the SWD. This was a big facility. This guy had 2 wells scattered all a half-mile apart. He could unload 18 trucks at one time. These were 5,000 barrel tanks with 3 of them. He has these set up on an automatic system. The camera looks through these tanks, and at 24 inches of oil buildup, a pump comes on. 6 inches, it shuts off. So he's taking 18 inches of oil out of 3 5,000 barrel tanks, and it fills up as, I think it's a 480 barrel tank with oil. He's never used chemical to treat it. He's never had to do a thing. He just sells that oil. It's pipeline quality oil. This thing sits up at the top of your level. Same time, he takes in lots of solids. He has to shut down every 3 to 4 months, he said, enter these tanks and get the bottoms out. He's on Highway 285 in the Delaware Basin, where they have, well, that's the biggest play there is. He's turned down millions of dollars of flowbacks because he had to go into his tanks and clean them. With this tool in there, it's bought in another month or two. If his suctions got covered up or his discharge lines, he could still use this tool to go in and out. And it allowed him to capture all this oil that they're getting from these flowbacks, and it made him a fortune. And he liked it so well, he took time and he sent me an email telling me how well he liked it. And it's on my webpage, matter of fact. I can purge a tank. I can show up with a bottle of nitrogen. I release the nitrogen at the root cause, and that's the oil level or the water level. I change the whole tank's atmosphere to inert. Like I said, you can have a nitrogen skid that does a constant purge and sweeps your tanks constantly. The skimmer keeps the oil off your tanks. It's hard to burn a tank when it doesn't have any oil or gas on it. This is a little film I show people. This is from an outfit that's a big environmental, well, they're trying to kill the oil business. But this just gives you an idea of what big tanks really look like. Floating roof tanks are supposed to be 98.5% containment. These really aren't bad seals. This is this 46 gravity oil in the Delaware Basin. It's just hot oil. These tanks are going to release this gas. This next one here is so bad, you think it's an East Texas thunderstorm coming in. It's time to hit the shelter. The storm shelter. You'll see it here in a minute. I'm not kidding. Here we go. Watch this. That's a lot of gas, folks.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. Midstream companies don't see themselves as producers. I can take this, my tool, put it in these tanks. It's a type 1 fire tool that the head fire chief for Chevron calls the best tank fire tool he's ever seen. And I can go into details about that and how fire foam has changed over the past year and a half because of carcinogenics. And he says, this is the answer because the new foams aren't quite as good as the ones with the carcinogenic stuff because the bubbles are not staying tied together as well. But I can go to a midstream company, put my tool in. They got the best fire tool that there is. Excuse me. And if I capture it underneath that roof, there's nothing to leak. I could put that gas in the gas turbine, burn it, make electricity. These big pipeline companies that have electric bill of $1.2 million a month in their tank farm, that goes away. Any excess electricity, they pay them 3 cents a kilowatt, and they put it back into the grid system. So it took away the electric bill. It made them some money on electricity sold. It solved all emission problems. It changed their whole permit and their business plan. Let's talk about O2 issues a little bit. I'm not about to tell you I solved O2 issues on tanks. I would be a fool to say that, because after 4 years of wearing out steel toe boots and refineries and oil production, but what I'm telling you is 90% of the time, it's that thief hatch that leaks right there. It's 5 foot away from the suction going to the compressor, and then downstream the compressor is a GC analysis running on a sales line. It says O2, wham, it shuts you off. And about 10 days from now, they'll come open it up. So you're out of compliance for 10 days. What I am telling you is I don't take suction there. I take suction in the most volatile, active area there is. I tell people, take your gas cap off, stick your nose into your gas tank right above your gasoline liquid level. Leave your gas cap off. How much oxygen are you going to get? I'm not saying we won't pull oxygen if it stays, if that thief hatch stays tripped long enough. It's going to stay tripped a long time. Hopefully that thing will reset before we ever get that tank that full of oxygen, because I'm constantly getting fed new methane gas from the oil. Now then, floating roof tanks. Well, all I do is attach to the bottom of the roof. There's pontoons that keep it afloat. There's going to be vapor spaces. That's where I work at. My number one objective is to keep that sill safe during the fire and to capture the gases in the tank. That's the number 2 objective. Like I said, if I capture there, there's nothing to go to that sill to leak. It won't build up pressure and work its way over there. I can even go to tanks in the refining industry, asphalt tanks, fluidic cat cracking unit tanks. They're all a heavy oil. I'll give you an example. I talked to the guy who actually was manning the camera on the Black Hawk helicopter 12 years ago, whenever TCQ first mounted on those helicopters. They flew over the Gulf Coast, and they flew over the oil fields and everywhere in Texas, and they actually got footage of how much methane was going to the atmosphere. He said he was at a refinery, and on the books, this 18 gravity oil that's already been cooked is 0 emissions. But on the books, that's based off 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That oil is 350 degrees in that tank. That way it'll actually move and pump. He said he pulled his camera up, got it focused in. It took him a minute or 2 to get it focused in, the infrared camera, and he said he almost dropped the camera because he thought the tank had caught on fire. Because it was, you know, when you run the infrared camera, it's either going to show black or white coming off of it. And he actually thought the tank was on fire because all the emissions coming off. These tanks are set up, if you'll notice the roof of these tanks, they got all these vents. So you can't put a vent pipe at the top of these and suck off of them. All you're doing is pulling air straight into the vent. You just create a pipeline of air coming into your tank and so you're not doing any good. But what you could do is you could take suction at your liquid level, go out here to your compressor and run your compressor off O2 sensor. You could capture 80 or 90% of what those tanks are leaking that no one is capturing on today. Here is an example of what I can do with a tank fire. This is the tool it's fixing to show. You'll notice that the floats are black. They're painted black just to hide the grind marks. That's the only reason people ask me, is it still stainless? Yes, everything on this tool is 316 stainless. I can build them out of carbon steel for oil tanks. You'll see this tank here. See the red hose at the bottom left-hand side? It's a 1-inch red hose. I'm going to put a tank fire out with a 1-inch hose. We're going to catch this tank on fire. We're going to let it get fully engulfed and hotter than the gates of hell before we ever open up the foam to it. For y'all who don't know this, I mean, I kind of knew it, but I didn't think about it. Fiberglass doesn't expand. It just busts. This tank, I thought, was going to bust on us the way it was popping and cracking. And you can't see me, but I'm on a ladder on the right-hand side. I had to get off my ladder because the heat got too intense for me. I'll let you know when we open up this 1-inch valve feeding a 1-inch hose. All right, the valve was just opened. This tank was fully engulfed. It's gasoline and diesel that we're burning. With a 1-inch hose, I put a tank fire out in 15 seconds. You can have a camera set up at your tank battery. The camera says fire in less than 1 second. In less than 1 second from that, a solenoid will open up. You have stored fire foam. They're called CAF units, compressed air foam systems. The foam will enter your tank. It will be released with no splash, no wind carrying it off, no heat disturbing it. It will lay across your hydrocarbon and put your tank fire. You could actually have a tank fire, and the next morning a pumper show up and not even realize that he had a tank fire. Fire trucks can use this tool. You could pop it. Right now, fire trucks have to pull up to the tank battery fire. They no longer have to do that. You can pop this a safe distance away, a football field away. They show up with one hose. They can hook up to the, say, 1.5 inch pipe. They pump into that pipe. What's it do? It goes and releases internally inside that tank. On-site utilities. Tank farms have water and foam stored and inductors that mix it. This all can be done with their equipment. This is a Type 1 fire apparatus tool. It puts it in the right spot, and it does it more efficiently than any tool out there. Let me give you an idea. This is a tank fire out here in West Texas. This guy was a storm chaser, and he no tornadoes that night. He saw this, so he started filming it. If you'll notice, the original tank on fire, the roof is still on it. These guys are not doing any good. They got 5 streams of water going. All they're going to do is keep things cool. Well, they only got so much water, and there's a whole lot of tanks. I think there was 19 tanks here. API says the roofs will blow off. So does ANSI and all that. You fix to see what the regulations say in the real world happening. This should have killed every fireman in there. It didn't because of luck. And that's the only answer I got. My point to this is, if my tools would have been in these tanks, that first fire would have been out in 30 seconds. This would have never happened. The atmosphere they're breathing in became 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. They should have got their lungs. Wind was right. There was enough obstruction in the way. Everything, just luck. That's the only reason these people lived. That and they're blue right. I will tell you that all 19 tanks were lost. The whole facility was lost. This was a SWD and an oil tank battery. Everything was tied together. Everything was lost. My point is, if my tools, if the Xtreme Tank Technology tools would have been in these tanks, that fire truck, the original tank fire would have been out in 30, 45, 60 seconds from the time they hooked their hose up and opened their valve. They can show up, you can pipe it in from the other side of the location, from out the paved road, wherever you're going to put it, and everyone goes home safe and successful. There's no need in trucks having to pull up these tank batteries anymore. Out here in the Permian Basin, where a whole lot of small towns, the majority of the volunteer fire departments have come out and said, we're there to support the livestock and the brush. We're not there to fight tank fires anymore. The average cost for remediation of dirt work on a burnt down tank battery is $650,000. And those who choose not to do the dirt work are responsible for the water for everybody for the next up 10 years. So you don't really have a choice. This tool enhances your vapor recovery above and beyond anything out there. Remove the H2S gas on floating roof tanks to increase the life of the tank. We also remove all gases off any float roof tank. I will tell you, mentioning that, I had a customer who had a WTI crude oil tank, Midland Mason, about every 2 months. His gas meter would shut him off and say high H2S. Well, they went and checked the gas. It wasn't high. His crude oil was 42 gravity crude oil, sweet crude oil. And this kept on happening and kept on happening. They kept on changing out the probe on the transmitters, and it drove them crazy. So they went and spent some money, and they started doing a continuous gas sampling. Every 30 seconds or 60 seconds, it would catch a gas sample. Well, it shut them off, high H2S. They checked the gas sample, and sure enough, it was high. WTI crude oil out here does have H2S in it. It's just the volumes aren't high enough. H2S is your heaviest gas. What they found out was the gas was building up inside their tanks, and it would burp and come out. It might just last for 20 seconds, but all it needed was 5 seconds across that meter. It shut them off. Put this tool in, guess what? Nothing gets past it. Nothing builds up. Again, it proves the point that it stabilizes your tank. It alleviates many O2 issues. It increases your net volume of BTUs. Your BTUs will go up because you're catching gases that were never caught before, and that is your heavy molecules. It stabilizes everything by doing this. Because of that, it solves reed vapor pressure issues. It allows you to sell bad oil. There's really no such thing as, I can't sell this tank anymore. Yeah, I can. I can sell it and only deal with the bad oil. Everything else stacked above it is good oil. It allows you to treat bad oil. I mean, I got a tool now, I can get rid of all the good oil out of the way that was going to absorb my chemical shock. That 20 foot I removed, and it left 4 foot of the bad oil. Before, I had to put all kinds of chemical in there because I had 20 foot of good oil that's going to be in the way of it. And it's going to absorb it. It allows me tank space to keep on producing oil, even in bad oil situations, because I can still suck it out. Keeps your hot oiling schedule clean. There is no more putting trash in your tank and taking that trash and going to well number 2. Detect extinguished tank fires. It does it in seconds. As far as I know, there's nobody that can do that. I've seen all kinds of spray nozzles, and that's what they do today on your big tanks. Every big tank has to have a fire system on it, and all they are spray nozzles spraying down on top of a floating roof. That is an obstructive fire. It's hard to put those out. I go underneath the roof where the hydrocarbon is. I change your tank's atmosphere from flammable to inert. Make a tank where it won't catch on fire. I keep the oil off of your water tanks, whether it's SWDs, water flood, tank batteries, where your water tanks are. Everybody's got oil in the water tanks. This grounds your load inside your tank. It stabilizes your tank bottoms. You don't have to deal with failing sediment, bad oil anymore on tank bottoms. You can use this tool. Like I said, what's it worth to you to have 1/10% more on every shakeout, because you can suck from starting up there.
Freedom.
We go to an existing tank battery. If it's capital work, you can have the connections put in your side of your tank. Existing tank battery, you use the manual way. That way there's no hot work on the tank. You empty your tank, set the tool inside the door, hook the hoses up to the inside of a new door that we had the connections welded on. It's plastic coated, ready to go. We bolt it up. There you go. Your big line is your vapor coming out or your fire foam going in. Your little line is your liquid coming out or liquid going in. Yeah, that's a 2-inch. You might want that to be a 4-inch. Like I said, these sizes change. This is your overall look coming to your compressor. That compressor is actually, there's a pressure transmitter up there next to this door. You can't see it, I don't think, but it is reading the most volatile active air duct tank. It is, if you'll notice, there's a 1-inch line here that's coming from the other tank roof down here to this line, so the pressure transmitter read it. There's a world of difference in that, guys. and reading where the action is taking place and reading off the roof of your tank or pulling off the roof of your tank. Any questions? I'm not hearing anybody.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Is Terry and Mike and Lennon still there?
Yeah, no questions at this time.
I have no questions. I've talked to you the first time me and James met with you in Midland.
Okay.
So I've been
Terry,
knowing about this for a while. Yeah.
Terry was at HEB with us.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's all I got, gentlemen. If you don't have questions.
Okay. I'm going to go into, I can figure out how, there it is. Okay. Just a little bit about what we do, how we, CMHR Management helps our clients expenses, increase revenue, reduce impact on the environment, make locations safer, protect assets remotely by using Xtreme Technologies tool. We have dedicated teams to install the Xtreme Tank Technology tool. Our roustabout crews go out, take off the manhole of existing tanks, no hot work involved. Once we enter the tank, we'll wash and inspect inside of the tank. Most issues are inside out. Rust starts to form around the rings on the tank. Going undetected, this causes contaminated soil and remediation issues. We'll notify you of any discrepancies with the integrity of the tank. Make any approved repairs. Only makes sense to inspect the tank and repair while we're inside, reducing future downtime and expenses. We've started installing in frac tanks. I'll let Paul sort of go a little more in depth if he wants to, as far as what we do on, what the tool is capable of on locations with frac tanks.
Yeah.
Why? Go ahead, Paul.
You want me to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we can go through. Let me get through this, and then I'll let you. Why use this technology during completions? We're able to reduce expenses and make your location safer by reducing the H2S out of frac tanks. Also, we eliminate the runaway trucks due to vapors. We keep all your oil on location, skim oil off the water. No truck needed to transfer oil, which means all your oil stays on location. Having worked on the service side for almost 20 years, if we pull oil on a truck, not all of it comes out. Even though the truck is empty, there's still going to be 1 to 2 barrels left in the truck. Okay, Paul, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, on the fracking side and the flowback side of the industry, that's I guess about 3 times this past year I've heard of it. They'll have 5 frac tanks on one side and 5 on the other, and trucks drive in between them. When they're flowing back, these geologists and engineers are all looking at the structure of the well and the suspension of the sands, and they got all this instrumentation. They don't care. They don't want to hear the trucks can't keep up hauling this liquids off. It's just keep your tanks empty because we got this job to do. And so these guys are just grabbing liquid and hauling it out of there. What's coming off these tanks is a tremendous amount of gas, and trucks will pull in there, especially at nighttime when the wind dies down and the atmosphere gets a little bit damp. It's gassier than hell, and gas goes into the intake of the diesel engine, and you have a runaway and you have a fire. You can turn the key off all day long and that engine will not die. And that's where the fires happen. What I tell people is we stop that. We can actually take this tool, put it in the tank, and you don't even have to take a compressor because you might have oxygen and all that. You just take a, or what's the word I'm hunting for? The jetting effect. You can use an air compressor and just take a pull on the tanks and go out a vent pipe 30 foot in the air and release it out there, out in the pasture. You're venting it to the atmosphere. And that way you don't have this gas atmosphere where these trucks are pulling up. Hey, that creates a very safe environment. And everyone in the oil industry knows that those frac tanks are smoking with vapors coming off of them all the time. We just have allowed it because we didn't have an answer. Now, I tell people you can, if you install it, and I came up with this solution right before COVID, and I had a fracking company going, or a frac tank company going to do it, and COVID hit, and the drilling stopped. But a sales pitch to this is you can go to the customer and say, look, just from being able to grab all your oil, that'll pay for the trucking costs. They're taking the water and oil and they're getting rid of it. They're going somewhere with it. Most of it's to SWD somewhere. That's why SWD companies make so much money, is because they get 50 cents a barrel for putting water in the ground, but they also get that oil for free. They don't have anybody to pay any royalties to. It's all theirs. Just that oil alone that you will be able to separate, you can give back to that customer who owns that well. He can tell you what tank to take it to. That will pay for the trucking cost. So that, as a sales pitch to them, you can say, look, we have these frac tanks, that keeps the whole world safe. You can charge more for these frac tanks too, by the way, because you've done this. And it will pay for the frac tanks and the majority of the trucking cost, because the oil you're going to gain and not give away is significant. There's sometimes the flowbacks are 30, 45, 60 days long. Depends on the length of how many stages and the horizontal is, and Howard County, they did one that was 3.25 miles long. It was a record setter. I think they flowed back 4.5 months on that well. And the oil that was probably given away was thousands of barrels. Some of it they were able to capture, but when they're heavily flowing back, it's not about capturing oil. It's about keeping those tanks empty so we don't have to stop the flow back, because that's something they can't afford to do. It's all about that well. They could care less about the oil they're giving away because it's about the future of that well. So in saying that, you can actually capture the oil fast, and you give the customer back their oil. They can tell you, we'll take it to 2 miles down the road to this tank battery. You stick it in that tank battery, it's got a LAC unit running, and that's paying for the trucking.